welcome to another episode of IT Pro TV. I'm your host, Mike Roderick, and with me today is Mr. Sean Oriano. How are you, Sean?
I'm feeling pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for asking. We're here at IT Pro TV doing another episode on our Kali Linux series, and in particular in this episode, we're going to be taking a look at website reconnaissance. So I'm thinking, Sean, just from that title, that we're going to be looking to see what kind of information we can gather from somebody's website that they're hosting.
Yes, that's exactly right. And is that we're looking at that point to see, well, what is available on someone's site, what can we potentially gather from that site. And remember, a website may very well be the entry point that you are going to have into that organization, whatever whoever it is. That's the public face of the organization. That's where they want people to know about them. That's where they want to share information. And it also consequently happens to be with all the web applications and stuff like that are out there, and how complex these things can be, that it's not uncommon for the things to be misconfigured or have some sort of screw up in there, and that's what you're trying to prey on. And we have plenty of tools that help us find those weaknesses, or at least get us down the right path. And so that's what we're doing. We're trying at least to start mapping the thing out first and make note of things, and then the next step would be, in a later step would be exploiting those.
Yeah, the web servers can be a real good source of information, as you said, misconfigured. They have to be available to the public, right? Because we want, well, most websites anyway, we want public to come to them and buy our product or find out about our company. The question is, how much information are they giving up on that web server? Because a lot of times admins don't do things properly, they take shortcuts, or they're just unaware that the web server's given up some of this information. And with these tools that you're going to show us, Sean, we're going to find it if they haven't taken care of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And think about this just for a moment. By the way, this is something I'd said before and in other places. But remember, when you look at web servers nowadays, when they're used, a lot of times it's a case of where you install something and that requires the web server, and at least in the case of Microsoft, which there's a ton of those out there, of course. In the case of Microsoft, it says, well, you install this product. This product requires the web server. It checks in all the boxes for you that it needs, and it shoves it on there, and that's it. The person that is installing this product that requires the web server says, oh yeah, if you need it, go ahead and install it. All they're concerned is this product over here. They're not concerned with the web server. They let this product manage the web server for them. This product's not concerned with securing. It's concerned, I need to work. It's looking to you to do that, and that's where you get the thing. This knowledge of intimate knowledge of how web servers work and little do's and don'ts. I'm starting to find that it's almost like a lost body of knowledge for the most part. It's getting to be forgotten because other things are handling it.
It is so common to see just about all these different applications that you install have that dependency. A lot of the roles, for example, in a Microsoft world have a dependency on IIS. And so, as you said, these admins are installing these other roles. It's got an IIS dependency, so it throws that on in the background, but they never once go into that IIS management console and do anything to secure it. As long as the application or role that they need is working properly, that's all they really care about.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You probably know people that do that. Hopefully the person you know isn't you that does that. But this is people that install those things. They get something like SharePoint. When I think about they install SharePoint, and SharePoint requires the web server, and all they do is they go through their checklist, say we need this, this, and this, and then install SharePoint, and then let SharePoint handle everything from there on out. And so, and in fact, SharePoint's one of those products that even has listed in some of the documents that Microsoft puts out. It says, don't manage the system through IIS, manage through the SharePoint interface. That's not to mean that you shouldn't, take some of the security precautions that you would anyway. It's just saying, SharePoint isn't managed through here; it's managed through here.
For the SharePoint site, use that SharePoint interface.
Of course.
But you still have a server in the background. I'll tell you another one that I always think of, Sean, is WSUS, the Windows Server Update Services. It's all HTML based or HTTP based, and that's one that'll throw that web server on there, and you might not even know you're running it in the background if you're not paying attention to what you're doing. So
yeah, certificate services. You can go on and on and on. There's lots of them that do that. and you really got to be be aware that that's something that's getting put out there, because it's starting to be kind of just installed as a matter of fact. It's not something that you're making this conscious decision anymore, and that's part of the reason why you get this. Well, I don't know how to manage the web server. I don't need to take care of it because something else is doing it. No, something else isn't doing all the management. It's taking care of its end of things. You still need to be on your game to make sure that things are getting done the way they're supposed to. So don't be surprised if the tools that we see here plus other ones reveal stuff that may make you feel a little uncomfortable that you found it. But of course, you want to find it and not someone else.
Right, yeah, and not just Microsoft, IIS being one, but Apache the same way, right? If you're going to go install that on a Linux server to support something else, don't forget that you have to secure that web server. So what kind of tools we got here, Sean? What's going to give us, how do we go about getting information about this website? I can visit their webpage, and we know from our previous episodes and even back into CEH, there's a lot of information I can get a lot of times right off of the website itself, because people put way too much info on there. But now we want to go a little bit deeper, and we want to say what kind of information is back there that they might not think we can get to. So I know we got some tools that we can use to do that.
Yeah, we do have a kind of a laundry list of tools, and to think about it for a moment, the type of stuff that we have already getting to this point. If you look at some of the tools that we did just in our previous segment, P0F, it was able to ID on the communications. It was able to ID what the remote system was. It has a capability of doing that. So that's given us something, about the system. If we look at the results a little closer from previous things, we can see the agent strings and stuff like that, and that will give us information about what's being exchanged. So we already are starting to kind of fill in some of those things with the web server. We just haven't directly targeted it yet. We've got things like IP addresses. We've got things like different types of records. We've got a lot of stuff. We just haven't really turned our attention fully towards gaining information out of that website. So that's what we got to do. And so the question is specifically what types of things should you be doing or are expected to be doing at this point? Well, one of them that is done that people do like doing is mirroring the website. Now, if you're on the Windows side, you got utilities like Black Widow for one. That's one that you can just go ahead and Xerox, as I like to say, a website, bring it down to your local system and start browsing it. But there are other ways to do that. You don't have to have that Black Widow utility to do it, or you don't have to have one of the other GUI-based tools you installed in Windows. You have these other ones. One of the ones that we have available right in Linux, not native to Kali, just in Linux period, that's useful for mirroring a website, is one called wget. Wget is a way of pulling down content. In this case, we're going to be pulling it from a website. And what I have here is I have up on my screen, I have a shot of wget with the switches in there, and I'll let you look up the switches. I'm not going to worry about going through all of those. But what we're going to do is I have wget, and then I'm going to put the domain name in at the end. And the domain name I put in, and I'll choose a domain to put in here. What I like to do is I try a domain that I know is probably not going to generate a lot of stuff. I don't want to go and point it at some large website, not for this, because I don't want to have it take a long time. I think I could probably do the IT Pro website right now. What this is going to do is it's just going to make a bunch of requests and pull down the actual content. I will tell you, when you're looking at that wget command, pay close attention to what's going on there. This is one of the gotchas that we have in Linux that you don't have necessarily in Windows. Windows does have it to a certain degree, but it's kind of inconsistent. If you look at that wget command, notice there's some stuff in there that's uppercase too. Uppercase and lowercase are not the same thing in the Linux operating system. So if you've got one or the other, it means two different things. And look how easily that could mess you up right here. You've got K in there twice. Both those K's mean something different. They don't mean, it's not me saying the same thing or twice. I'm not stuttering or something there. It's got a lowercase and an uppercase. It's two different things. So do pay attention to that when you're doing anything in Linux. If you do not get the result that you want, you're getting frustrated, at doing something, make sure you've got the case right. That's one of the first things I tell people to check, because it's an easy way. It's an easy thing to screw up on.
It is. I'm from a Windows world, and case never seems to matter when you're at the command prompt. But in a Linux environment, it definitely is. A lot of those switches are reused because there's so many different options. So they'll use, like you see here, a lowercase k means one thing, and uppercase K means something completely different. So you got to pay attention to that.
Yeah, the problem with if you come from a Windows world is where they really mess you up is they're just really inconsistent with it. Is that you look at stuff like netstat. Netstat's got a lowercase a and an uppercase a, but there's plenty of other cases in the system that don't care about the case at all. So it's like they enforce it in some places and not the other. Here, it's on Linux, Unix, any of those. It's all enforced. It doesn't mean the same thing. So you're going to have to maybe part with some old habits that you developed when you come over to Linux. So any case, what I have is I've put that up there, and what I'll do is I will hit enter, and what it's doing is it's going to go out and look at the IT Pro website, and it did a quick thing. It did a quick deal with it, and looks like it pulled down just the index page, and didn't take it long. It downloaded one file, and that was it. Reason why it probably did that is that you've gone through and you're here, so you've gone through the IT Pro website. It's some of those ones I'm presuming are dynamically generated. They're using some server-side technology, type like PHP, something like that, or active server pages, something like that. They're using one of those. Those things, wget's going to have trouble getting those because those are dynamically generated when they're requested. So don't expect those things to come down. So if you have a website you're clicking around and you clearly see a lot of pages, well, you see all these pages. Those pages may not actually exist. They may be created dynamically out of a database someplace or off a query. It confuses people all the time. I think back when I used to do my my SharePoint classes, a long time ago, you would get people that weren't used to that type of system, and they would move to SharePoint, and they'd have a problem with the way something looked, and they said, "Where are those pages stored?" And you'd have to tell them that's not the way it works. You have to explain it. It's like, well, it has to be stored someplace. It's like, that's not the way it works. You had to really get into it. And because it was just so foreign to them, no matter how many times you explained it, they were used to having static web pages with some script on the client side. They weren't used to them having a database that you pulled those things out of there and generated stuff off of that. Right. So that would cause confusion. Now, if you have that type of site and you use a tool like this is exactly what I expect to see. I have dynamically generated web pages. I got one page, and if I was to go over to my home folder, I would see, I would see in my home folder, you would see here's the IT Pro website or what I did off of that, and it's just got a couple things in there. It's got the original, a copy of the HTML page, and that's it. Right. Okay. In fact, the reason why it's got two is one of the switches in there says. It says to download one that's been altered to point to that if there was like graphic files embedded in there, it will alter it so it points to the graphic files that it pulled down and stored in your hard drive. The other one is just the original one that says where everything originally was when it was sitting out there on the server someplace. So that's all that is. We're seeing some pages there. Boom, done, and that's so very 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 effective, very simple way to Xerox a website or mirror a website as they call it. Once you've downloaded that, you can start looking through it to see what type of content's there. You can start scraping stuff. You can start scraping stuff out of a website that may not even be linked in some cases using wget. And wget, by the way, is not the only way to do this. There are other tools that are used to harvest stuff out of a website that will gather stuff that's not linked in anywhere. It will just go through and look at a website and say, okay, tell me what you want to look for, or I'll look for everything. And it'll just go right on through and boom, got it.
All right.
All right, so that's mirroring the website. So we've got if that was successful, we've got a copy of the website that we can dig through. You might be looking for comments and stuff like that. So we've got that done. The question is, now we're done with that, and what's the next thing to do? So we move on to the next command on here. So what was the next one I had on my list here?
Let's see here. I got LBD or IBD. Not sure.
LBD. Okay. All right. So let me show you that one is LBD. What that one does. Okay. Well, let's just for a second back up and talk about what we had in our when we looked at our records back in our previous segments. We looked at our records. Remember when we went to our who is, we had those 2 IP addresses for Microsoft.com. Okay, that's a concern of ours. Now we know, like I said, from previous experience, we know that that's a load balance situation. There's not some crazy thing going on. There's 2 servers or two IP addresses, but they're going through a load balance, so it can deal with the volume and all that good stuff. Okay, so the prior experience, we know that's there, but if we take out that prior experience and we're not sure at this point, or we might be a little confused if there's load balancing going on, that's where you have this thing called the LBD. LBD is short for load balancing detector, which if you enter it in, you can tell exactly what it does. What does load balancing detector do? Anyway, what you do is you do LBD, and then what you do is you type in a name or an IP address. You can type that in, and you go ahead and hit enter on that. And what this does, you can see it's scanning that site, and it tells you really, look how quick it is. It tells you right away. Looking for DNS load balancing, found. Boom, found it right there.
Nice.
And it's still checking for some other stuff. It's checking, for HTTP, see if it's got any load balancing going, on there. Now notice that it says in kind of the disclaimer up top. It says it's a proof of concept, might give false positives, but again, that's why you double check this stuff. Some of these things. I mean, at least this guy's telling you that some of these people wrote some of these tools on the Linux side. They wrote it just as kind of something that they did, way back, when or whatever, and they've never maintained it or updated it. So it's smart for you to go and double check these things. And so there it's found some date information on when this was on relating to HTTP. So it's got that. Now it's looking for differences information with the information synced. So, I mean, it's really kind of digging through this, but we've already answered our big question is that load balance? So it is, right there. We answered that question.
Nice, easy enough. I like that.
No. I mean, I like I said, I would still look at some of these other things, but you can very quickly and easily tell this one. I mean, if you go do LBD on other sites, you can see the type of results you'll get off these other sites. I mean, you can see, here's another one. This one doesn't have, very quickly says, okay, it's not load balanced on DNS, so it didn't find anything going on there. So looks like they're not doing it. Which, I don't know, I find that kind of questionable that something like USA Today wouldn't have that, because that's a big site, but who knows? Right. There could be something different going on there. But anyway, you can try variations, or not try variations, but you can try it against different sites and see what you can actually pull up with this. I mean, I could put in IT Pro's website, and hey, right there, it came up right away. Saying that that the DNS is load balanced. It's got some other stuff it's going through, so it's telling us that these technologies are in place, which you would expect with the millions of people that subscribe to this service.
Absolutely. Yeah, but I tell you, it's another way to get all the DNS server addresses there. And also a way to figure out if, hey, is that IP address for that website, is that the actual web server? Because that's going to change my attack method, right? If that's a load balancer that I'm hitting and not the actual web server, it's going to make a difference in the next steps, I would assume.
Yeah, so we've have ways. We've gone through and we've verified, quite a bit, quite a bit of data at this point. And so this one's still grinding away, doing its stuff, and it could take a while. It does all special types of queries to get it, but it will, always return something and tell you, is this load balanced, and to what degree is it load balanced? So this one's saying, it didn't find any load balancing there, but we could look up that information there, the security cloud proxy. I mean, you've got information, you can look that up, and that may very well answer your question.
Right.
It may be a form of load balancing or protection that this tool can't detect.
Nice.
So it's possible if that happens. So there you go. You got some some good data right there with this utility.
And I like the name of the next one. Now this sounds like it's going to give me lots of good stuff. The Harvester. The
Yes.
Harvester.
It sounds really awesome. I like it.
Right.
That would be a great professional wrestling name. If I was ever going to do it, I would go under that name. All right. So what I've done here is I went ahead and I preset this one up for us. So you don't have to watch me type the thing up. So this is one that you can select right off the menu. I've just gone through and put it in for you. What this one's doing, you see the harvester. It's saying -D. That means domain, and you see the domain I'm targeting after that. -L tells you just how much information it's going to pull out of this. That's the thing with some of these tools, by the way. When you look at getting information off a website, things like wget plus a bunch of other ones that really kind of dig in and get into the nooks and crannies of a website. Be aware when they get in there. Be careful of how aggressive you are with it. You might say, well, just turn it up. I want everything. Do you really want everything off that site? I mean, because when you think about it, the normal website, you have the main landing page, and then you have some pages underneath that, and then you have pages underneath those. And if it's a big enough site, that keeps going down. And that's almost like a geometric expansion of stuff. So if you go down 4 or 5 levels, that doesn't sound like a big deal, but that could be hundreds and hundreds of web pages very quickly, and that's just the pages. That's not the images and other stuff that goes with it.
Right.
So you may seriously want to consider how aggressive you get. I would say if you're not sure, just slowly amp it up. Typically what you like to do is go down about 3 levels and chop it right there. But going any further than that is going to really expand it out. But they have other switches like this here too that tell you how much it's going to return. So it's going through telling you the levels, and then it's also telling you at the end what it's going to search against. So I'm going to run this. So it's going to target that site, and you can see it's looking at stuff it's searching the site. It's going out to Microsoft and going through that searching results against Google for that site. And let's see what it's returning. So okay, thing's done. Okay, let's go back see what the harvester actually got for us. If we go back and we look at this, so Google, it didn't find anything useful for us in Google, but look at the emails it found. The email it found just by going through and those pages, it found 4 email addresses. Now we know there's more than that at Microsoft, but those are actually listed someplace in some sort of in some public area where it was able to find them.
So somewhere on their webpage and their source code for that webpage or something like that?
It's somewhere. It could very well be in source code. It could be maybe somehow it got to a discussion group really quickly through that and pulled it. It could be like some contact or employment forum. Who knows? It could be something like that. But then we look down even further. Now it's finding other stuff. Other hosts it found. So it's saying I found an IP address and the DNS name that goes with with the two that go together. So now you've got the association. I can see IP address. I can see the host name that goes with it. So I've gone through and generated that really quickly. So it just went through and scanned the website and found these things. Now you can try different locations. I mean, let's see. Let's try another one. I'm trying to think of another good one, but. All right, I try news sites sometimes to see if it does anything for me. But you'll see that it's the harvester goes through and is trying to extract data, from those, from that site, and see what it can find. So didn't find as much, but it did find some. It did find some stuff. So you can play around with that and try different ones, or try your own company's website and see what it finds. Sometimes it's gonna pull out quite a bit. Other times it might not pull really anything at all. This one's not that much, but it pulled out some information. I got a Nintendo. What the heck? So yeah, we're going through here, and I searched Nintendo.com to see what it's pulling.
It's one of those commands, like as an admin, you're almost scared to run it because you're like, okay, let's see how bad it is. Let's see what I have not secured properly.
Yeah. To be honest, this stuff at the bottom, the hosts it found, it's going. As you can see, it went through search engines and found that. Well, it finds those things. In search engines. Okay, well that would be something that you can't really secure
Can't
too
control
much.
that, yeah.
Okay, so I'm okay with that. I understand that, but then if you scroll up in here, these email addresses. Now you got to ask yourself, those email addresses, are they all really stuff that should be public like that, or should they be hidden? I mean, I can see this thing like this NOA legal. That's the Nintendo of America legal department. Well, they probably want to have it out there for people to report stuff, or if you have problems with the website, it might be even on their privacy policy on their website. They may have that. That may be where they got that from. So who knows? But that's you do have information being extracted from here that is useful. So yeah, you might want to consider if this is something that should be out there. So nice. There you go. That's what the harvester does for you. And like I said, try your own company site. It's a lot of times I've seen people run this one. It's like it's one of those things that's an eye opener. Like, well, how did it know that? And it causes you to go through, especially in the email addresses. By the way,
yeah.
Like I've never seen that out there, and they spend some time going through looking at it, and they find in one place it's hidden in source code or a text file someplace. It's somewhere. And I'm like, I had no idea.
That's why all that spam has been coming in, and that email address.
Yeah,
there.
it very well could. That absolutely could be a reason. So you're seeing it right. You're seeing the stuff right there, and this stuff it's not something that that had to go through any underhanded manner to get. This is just using normal search methods and stuff like that to find out what's going on. And so we've pulled some information off the website pretty easily, and you even got the subdomain stuff on there too.
Nice. So
that's it is a pretty nice piece of information to have. So that's the harvester. A little gotcha I'll tell you is to be careful if you're going to look up the harvester. I mean, if you're going to go out and Google some of these commands, I've seen it where when they put the harvester, the command line stuff in there, for the command for the harvester, they'll do THE and then they'll put capital H. I don't know why someone did that, because if you do that, that thing will break every time. It will not work. You could do that whole command line and put a capital H in there, and it's probably going to break on you. It won't work. So
the harvester command not found.
Yeah, it'll say that. It's like, what are you talking about? I don't know what it is. And if you weren't aware of that little detail I told you, that that case sensitivity is a big issue here on the Linux side of the house. You'll sit there and you'll be spitting nails and everything else, going, what's going on? I'm doing this right, and stupid Linux. I hate Linux and all. It's like, no, some idiot put it wrong on their page, and it doesn't work that way. You have to get the case right, or it will absolutely break. And you'd be surprised how easy it is to miss that. Yep. It just we've been trained to do that with all the Windows desktops out there. We've been trained to do that. Some of us have been around long enough. Okay, we don't necessarily have that habit. It's just not something we use all the time. But anyway, just thought I'd point that out to you.
All right, Sean. Well, I know we got a couple more tools we want to go over. We got time to do those, you think? I know I want to see that MetaGoo fill and.
Those ones are big ones, so yeah. maybe we want to break this one up, because those are some really nice ones that we got to talk about.
You don't want to rush through anything.
Not at all.
All right, I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, then this is going to be a good place for us to go ahead and wrap this episode up. But don't worry, we're going to come back with another episode and more information or more tools that we can use to gather information off of websites. But for now, signing off for IT Pro TV, I'm Mike Roderick.
And I'm Sean Ariano.
And we'll see you next time.